Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's French Open semi-finals catch-up,
Sinner downs Djokovic to set up Alcaraz final,
Sabalenka dethrones Swiatek with a final set bagel.
and Coco Gauff stops Lois Boisson's miracle run in ruthless fashion.
Kim, today is the 6th of June, and we are here to catch up on the semi-finals of the French Open at Tennis Weekly HQ, brought to you by Property Hub Invest. We now have our four finalists set in the singles at Roland Garros: Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Aryna Sabalenka, and Coco Gauff. The number one and number two seeds in both the men's and women's draw at a Grand Slam in the finals. I don't know the last time that happened. I should probably have done my research before coming on to record. But listeners, do let us know if you are hot on the stats. Let us know, because that feels like it has not happened in a long time. I'd be very, very curious to know. But Kim, we are coming back off Sinner versus Djokovic, the second men's semi-final, and we're going to be chatting about it. We're going to be chatting about Alcaraz Musetti. We're going to do a little men's finals preview, and in the second half you're going to morph into Chris, and it's going to be me and him chatting about the women's semi-finals and looking forward to the women's final as well.
I will magically, do a disappearing act and morph into Chris. So look out for that, listeners, because that's unusual. But Joel, I wanted to ask, you've got a strange looking drink in front of you. It looked quite pink, and then I think it's actually an Aperol spritz. It's more orange than it looks in reality.
It is indeed. For all of our listeners who are watching on video, or if you're not, this is a reason to watch on video, because you can sort of watch me be drinking a lovely Aperol spritz, which Kim, you informed me is an Italian. It's an Italian drink.
It is. So are you celebrating Jannik Sinner's win, or are you commiserating Musetti's retirement? I don't know.
maybe a bit of both. But yeah, it's a Friday night. I thought, what a nice way to kind of end the week. Watch some of the men's semi-finals. But I think it's a bit of both. Celebrating Jannik Sinner, commiserating Lorenzo Musetti. I'm just here for the Italians.
It's making me think on Sunday I should get a Spanish bottle of wine and an Italian bottle of wine. And then whichever way it goes, I will be able to justify having a glass of wine.
I mean, maybe for the men's final, like literally next to me, maybe I'll have another Aperol spritz. And then right next to it, maybe I'll have a
sangria.
A sangria? Yeah.
Balance it out for the sake of fairness.
And I'll just have both.
Either of them are probably slightly more classy than your usual WKD.
How dare you? I'm waiting for Jack Draper to get to the Grand Slam.
Then that'll be
the final. Then we can bring out the WKD Alco pot.
I will have to source a Serbian drink as well.
Our Roland Garros coverage is brought to you by Property Hub Invest.
If you're looking to build a successful property portfolio without the stress of going it alone, Property Hub Invest could be exactly what you need.
With over 13 years of experience and trusted by the Sunday Times as weekly property columnists, the team behind Property Hub Invest have helped thousands of investors build hands-off, high-performing portfolios.
They source buy-to-let opportunities you won't find anywhere else, complete with exclusive investor discounts, then guide you through every step so you can invest with confidence and grow your wealth the smart way.
So if you're serious about property, head to propertyhub.net/start to take your first step.
That's propertyhub.net/start.
The link is in the description.
I'm sure some Serbian fans might be nursing their sorrows because Djokovic wasn't able to get the win today. Jannik Sinner did defeat him in 3 straight sets, 6-4, 7-5, 7-6. It was, I guess out of the 2 semi-finals, this was, the spectacle. It was the night session, ticketed session now, obviously, and this was the earmarked match. And did it deliver, Joel? Did it live up to the billing? Were you disappointed? What's your initial feeling when this match ended?
I think I wasn't surprised with the victor. I think Jannik Sinner's level of tennis, I think he's shown the highest level of tennis across the last couple of weeks at Roland Garros if you compare him to everyone else, including Novak Djokovic. But what I was impressed by was the level that Djokovic brought to the court, because I don't think we have seen him play that well for quite a long time. But again, it just shows how good Jannik Sinner is, that despite the level that Djokovic, I think, was bringing to the court, he was still able to dispatch him in 3 sets, even though it felt like Djokovic was continually getting more and more into the match. He was knocking more and more on the door of Sinner's serve, but still wasn't really able to create any significant inroads.
Yeah, Sinner didn't actually have the greatest serving performance. I don't think statistically his stats were up that high, but I felt that he was able to combat mostly everything that Djokovic kind of threw at him. So, Djokovic, he broke back at the end of that second set when Sinner was serving for, obviously, he then got broken and Sinner served out at 7-5 for 7-5. But, he then had those 3 set points on Sinner's serve, end of the third set, wasn't able to capitalize. Sinner just seemed to produce the goods when it mattered the most. And I think that was quite frustrating, for Djokovic fans watching from home. But in a way, Sinner was just kind of doing what Djokovic would normally do to others, giving him a taste of his own medicine, I thought.
Yeah, and I thought that first set was particularly crucial, especially for Novak Djokovic, because as you alluded to, Sinner's stats on his first serve were way down. I mean, he was at 43% first serves in that first set, and it didn't really get much better in that second set either. It was still under 50%. But when you're serving that low level, you expect, your opponent to make the most of it. And again, a previous Novak Djokovic that we know for his incredible returning, prowess, just was not able to get, inroads and make him pay for kind of a poor service performance in that first set. I mean, the fact that he wasn't even able to manufacture one break point, I think speaks volumes in terms of how well Sinner was able to kind of come through his service games, even when his first serve wasn't really working at all for him.
Yeah, it makes you think, if his first serve percentage was better, would the score have been even as close? I think obviously Sinner beat Djokovic at the Australian Open earlier this year. I mean, how much confidence do you think that would have given him going into this? Like, he's already beaten Djokovic at a slam this year, and especially at a slam where Djokovic has won 10 times. He's only won 3 times here. But do you think that was giving Sinner that kind of boost he needed as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it feels like he is in the ascendancy now, and it's sort of an odd position, I think, for Novak Djokovic, even though it's impressive that he got to the semi-finals here. It felt like when he was walking onto the court, well, I certainly felt like he was the challenger.
The underdog.
The underdog, if you will. Like, I know not maybe everyone will kind of see that point of view, but for me, certainly he was walking on like that. And that's why I was so excited in those first few games, because it felt like they were really going toe to toe with each other. And I was kind of looking at Novak Djokovic's performance and being like, oh, he's brought his A game here. And I've not seen this yet from him, I think, in the tournament from that very beginning. So I was very excited. Having said that, it tailed off quite quickly a little bit. There was a little bit kind of a lapse in concentration. It felt like he was going to the drop shot too much, and I can understand why he used that as a tactic. It worked well for him against Zverev in his semi-final, but it felt like he was trying to, move Sinner and bring Sinner in. And I understand that as a tactic, because we know that Jannik Sinner is a lot more comfortable at the back of the court versus, trying to volley away at the net. But he wasn't really executing it that well. And I felt that Djokovic was getting more and more into the match, the more he kind of understood, actually, this is not working for me. And going toe-to-toe with Sinner from the baseline actually was having a bit more of an impact.
Yeah, there were moments of vintage Djokovic, but I also there were moments towards the end that smash, the failed smash in the last
Yes.
set tie break. I just thought that's also vintage Djokovic because we have seen him throw in a few of those dodgy smashes when he gets tight. So I sort of enjoyed that in some capacity, but just because it was
Were you not
reminded
hoping
me
for
of
a fourth set?
Djokovic of old.
Did
I
you
was
think a
hoping for a
fourth? Did
fourth
you
set,
think
yeah.
a fourth set was on the cards? Because honestly, through that third set, I felt that we had a lot of juices on Sinner's serve,
We
and
did.
again, I was impressed by, and you sort of expect it from the world number one, but in those moments of adversity when your rival is knocking on the door, he was battening down the hatches as it were, and he was able to kind of withstand all that was being thrown to him. So I was impressed with those moments where I think he saved all the break point chances for Djokovic in that third set. So again, it was like well done to keep that to a straight sets, because I think it very easily could have turned quickly to Djokovic. And you sense the crowd also, the more and more it was kind of going towards Sinner, you sense more and more that the crowd maybe were on Djokovic's side to push it to a fourth.
They wanted more tennis. So did I. I would have been very curious to see how the fourth set would have gone. I still think Sinner would have won the match. I do think, also being just that bit younger and fresher, Djokovic seemed to be having some treatment, obviously, on his left sort of upper leg region. So I don't know if there was a bit of a physical niggle going on as well, but I think Sinner would have come through anyway, but I would have loved to have just seen Djokovic get that third set. I think it would have, just been curious to see how Sinner would have coped and handled that. I'm sure he would have come through in the end. But what for me was the most impressive about him today was, he just battened down the hatches. He didn't let Djokovic get more than, a bit of a whiff of opportunity. And that's what you need to do when you come up against, the greatest player of all time at these stages of a Grand Slam. If you're trying to win your first French Open title, Djokovic may not be the Djokovic of old, but he was blooming dangerous out there still tonight. So very impressive that Sinner came through in 3 straight sets. I mean, the level that he's playing at, Joel, do you think, we'll get onto a proper preview, but the level from Sinner coming through Djokovic today, good enough to win on Sunday if he plays like he did today?
Yes, I think it feels to me like it is his to lose based on the level he has shown so far. I think Carlos Alcaraz can get to that level, and we've seen that level from him many times before, even as a champion here at Roland Garros. But I don't think we've seen it from him this tournament. There's been too many wobbles from him, including in the semi-final against Musetti, which we'll come on to, that makes me think that Alcaraz does go in maybe as a slight underdog, even though he's got the history on his side with Roland Garros, having won it before. But I guess before we get onto that, I just wondered, just on Novak Djokovic, where do you think this leaves him with his kind of quest for the 25th Grand Slam title? I mean, another opportunity kind of come and gone, as it were. But to me, in a strange way, this tournament has shown me that he can still compete at the very top level. And just speaking about Carlos Alcaraz, to me, I'm almost like in this, I have no doubt in my mind that if Novak Djokovic had fallen on, or was on the other side of the draw to Jannik Sinner, then he could have got to another Grand Slam final.
I'm tempted to agree with you there. I think Djokovic's level, and given how Alcaraz has been playing, bit hit and miss at times, I think Djokovic would have had enough to potentially have defeated Alcaraz. But if it was up against anyone else, I think Djokovic can take a lot of confidence from his performance here. Going into Wimbledon as well, I think, the grass as well, it's a tricky surface for a lot of players. Djokovic has won Wimbledon countless times. It's, a better surface and has more history at Wimbledon than he does even at Roland Garros. Obviously, Rafa's had something to do with that. But I think, he's shown here that he is, aside from Jannik Sinner, he probably would have been the second most likely player to win this tournament.
Has he shown has he shown that he is the number 3 player
Think
behind
so.
Djokovic and
Yeah.
Alcaraz? Not Draper?
No, I mean,
Not
just
Zverev?
their pedigree at slams. I just feel that Djokovic will bring it when he can. Jack is, great prospect, but I think I'd still go with experience and Djokovic being Djokovic. And I think, as long as I don't know what this niggle he might have had today with his leg, if he can, sort of take some time out and recover and come back strong for Wimbledon, I think he'll take a lot of confidence from his performance over the last fortnight here,
Do you
especially
think?
given how bad his, coming into the tournament, well, coming into before Geneva,
Yeah.
he really wasn't, having a good run of form. He's sort of almost shifted that around completely.
Do you think it would help if he tried to get his seeding up to maybe in that kind of top 4 slot? I mean, he came into Roland Garros as the 6th seed. He doesn't traditionally play a lead up to Wimbledon. I know we've seen him a few times, many moons ago at Queen's. I
Yeah.
think maybe did he take a wild card into
He played Eastbourne once.
He did,
yeah.
that did. Yeah, I was sort of remembering it. Did that actually happen? But and he does sometimes play he has played the Boodles as well as an exhibition again in the lead up. Do you think he maybe should kind of tweak his schedule to maybe try and chase getting a higher seeding so that he potentially has a, potentially more comfortable draw come Wimbledon? Or do you think he's gonna just kind of go from here? Such a quick turnover and just go straight into chasing another Grand Slam on the grass courts of Wimbledon?
I don't think he really needs to chase just, to get a higher seed because, he's already going to be, say 6th seed again. You're ending up playing the same players anyway at the latter stages, whether you're going in as the 3rd seed or the 6th seed, you're going to potentially, play the same person in that sort of quarter semi-final. So I don't think that would particularly motivate him. It may well do, but if I was him, I would, yes, maybe play a warm-up tournament just for the sheer practice of it. Maybe this time you do need to play the warm-ups. Years ago he wouldn't have needed to, but I don't think needing to be in the top 4 seeds is as, if anything, you'd want to maybe be 2nd seed just to avoid Sinner until the final.
Yep.
But that is probably not potentially mathematically possible with the time that we've got left. And, Sinner on the grass, I don't know, different prospect perhaps. Alcaraz is obviously going in as the 2-time defending Wimbledon champion. So, I think Djokovic overall, fantastically positive tournament. I think he'll be disappointed that he didn't take just some of those opportunities tonight on the Sinner serve. But Sinner doing very well to shut the door on those opportunities.
Not bad for a 38-year-old. We
not
always
bad
have
for
to
a
mention
38-year-old.
that.
I know, you forget, don't you? And then you sort of see his kids in the audience. You think, oh, they've grown. They're not, time has moved on. And Djokovic, is closer to 40 than 30. So still doing marvelous for that age. And we did have a semi-final before, though, didn't we? Earlier today, Alcaraz, Musetti, 2 much younger individuals. It's fair to say, Djokovic was definitely the elder statesman amongst the 4 semi-finalists that we had. But talking about this just earlier, Carlos Alcaraz coming through in 4 sets, 4 incomplete sets, I would say. Musetti retiring in that 4th set, so it wasn't a completed match. Very strange, almost a match of 2 halves, I think. Musetti playing fantastic in the first 2 sets and then seemingly kind of falling off a cliff with his performance and physical body. So to allow Alcaraz to come through in a different fashion, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really expecting that. At the end of the first set, I think Musetti, was playing some of the best tennis actually I've ever seen him play. He was really playing at a level that was higher than Alcaraz, I think. And I think maybe that took Alcaraz by surprise. But unfortunately, the match turned on that injury suffered by Musetti at the start of the 3rd set. In press, he said afterwards that he was really sad and disappointed how it ended. he said, I felt at the beginning of the third when I was serving, I started to losing a little bit of strength on the left leg, and definitely was getting worse and worse. So I decided to stop. So it sounded like it was a thigh or a hamstring injury, and I think maybe Alcaraz was a little bit fortunate with that, given the level that Musetti was playing at. And from Musetti's point of view, maybe he's played a lot of tennis over the last month or so. He's been so consistent. Semi-final in Madrid, semi-final in Rome, semi-final Roland Garros. It's going to catch up to you at some point. And unfortunately, it caught up with him here. And it almost like he went out playing like he needed to win in 3 sets. And the question was, can he keep up the level he was playing at? And he pretty much did for 2 sets. And I'll give him massive credit there. But yeah, it was unfortunate, I think, that it just felt like he ran out of steam ultimately. And having said that, sadly, it's not the first time we're saying that about Musetti.
He does seem to, physical issues. Yeah, I think there's some, work he can do there. Does his fitness hold him back? But also, I feel like we have seen quite a lot of up and down matches where he'll just
retirements.
And retirements. He's sort of not a reliable contender. And dropping that second set, I did think, surely Alcaraz is going to come through. Now, I don't think Musetti, I think that will have sort of crushed his spirit losing that second set. I think he, like you said, he would have had to have done it in straight sets.
Should he have finished the match?
I mean, he wasn't far off. Could he have sort of limped through another few games? 6-love, 2-love, though. He'd lost 8 games on the trot. What would have been the point in going through the rest of the match? I don't know. What if I was him, you kind of don't want a full-on defeat on your record because it looks bad. Whereas if it says retirement, it's obvious when people are looking through, he was injured, So I can understand both perspectives, but it's a real shame for the crowd, though, that they didn't get the longevity of the contest. That I think, when it went a settle, they might have thought, we're here for the long haul now.
I mean, you can think from, I think, Musetti's perspective, the fact that he's defending Queen's finals points, Wimbledon semi-final as well. I wondered if that was playing on his mind and whether he felt that maybe carrying on just was not worth it and would have done more harm than good. And that maybe was his reasoning with kind of retiring. But I do think it's disappointing from the crowds, and I do think it brings into focus, Kim, these single session semi-finals that we do have at Roland Garros. Again, completely understand it from a financial, money point of view, but when you put so much pressure and expectation onto kind of one match and it doesn't even get completed, it sort of ruins the event a little bit, I think, from a fan perspective.
Yeah, notice they don't do that for the women's semi-finals, do they? But we won't go down that road again. It's a real shame. I mean, you can never odds these things. Like, they can just happen. Obviously, it's a physical game. Injuries can happen out the blue. It's one of the risks that you take, especially when you're just literally going to one match. I do think Musetti, he's had a great clay season here. He's been playing so well, and he had a great grass season last year, and he'll want to sort of have another great grass season and not have an injury hanging over him. So I think in his mind, he probably thought, well, there's no way I can carry on and compete. I'm not going to win this match. I might as well not do myself any further harm. So if you think about it like that, you can understand his reasoning.
I get it, but do you feel like single sessions work? I know with all the talk so far, I think, has been around the men's versus women's debate, as always on that night session match, but it almost kind of puts out of focus the fact that this is a single session, match, and regardless of who's playing, if it's a washout or there is a quick withdrawal or retirement, or injury, it has a lot more likelihood in leaving fans feeling kind of shortchanged. So is there an argument maybe to say single session tennis shouldn't even exist if we're going to have retirements, or should there be like a plan B backup?
It was almost a tongue twister there, Joel. Single session tennis shouldn't exist. Yeah, I suppose I'm kind of trying to equate it to like in snooker when you get like the final session of a like the World
Yes,
Championships
very
and
true.
someone's got only like one frame to go and you think, oh, but I know they have got policies in place if they get less than a certain amount of time, they get either a full or half refund, and they have that in tennis as well. Normally it's because of rain, affecting, but obviously here they've got a roof. But I assume they might still have a policy of if you get less than an hour's play, which so at least there's some kind of backup. But yeah, it's just disappointing. It really is. Musetti though, overall, like you said, he's great play season. I mean, he's only one of 5 players to have reached the semi-finals of all clay 1000 Masters events and Roland Garros in the same year. The other players to have done that in their careers are Rafa, Djokovic, Andy Murray, and Zverev. So he's in good company there. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing more of this kind of new and improved Musetti. But yeah, does still have some kind of existing issues to
he needs to
out.
he needs to, similar to I think the questions we've had around Jack Draper, he needs to get physically stronger, I think, because the tennis is there. The tennis is beautiful. It's brilliant. And I think he's shown how he can play really well at the very top level on all court surfaces. To think he can transition from clay to grass so quickly, again, I think is another credit to just what a versatile tennis player he is. But, he needs to make sure his body can live up to the, the scheduling. And if it can't do that, then perhaps there's a question on the scheduling and thinking about how do I make it work to my limits, because his tennis now is probably at a level where he can maybe pick and choose a little bit more in terms of the events he plays to keep himself fit and fresh. Because if he can do that, again, I think I've no doubt we're going to see him at the business end of Grand Slams in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And let's look at the business end of the men's draw, because on Sunday we do have the top 2 seeds facing off. Sinner against Alcaraz, defending champion against the world number 1. They've never lost a Grand Slam final, neither of them. Obviously, that's going to change on Sunday.
Whoa, big jeopardy at play.
Carlos Alcaraz leads the head-to-head 7-4. He's not lost to Sinner since 2023. He has won, the last 4 matches they've played. 2 including of those matches are on clay, 2 on hard. Yeah. But Sinner's sole win on clay over Alcaraz was back in 2022 in Umag. So a long
we are
time
changing.
ago.
Yeah, we are. That is definitely a sign of the times. I mean, I would definitely be looking at, they played each other last year at Roland Garros, where Carlos Alcaraz came through in 5 sets from 2 sets to 1 down. And, the stakes are, I guess, even higher now. We've got the number 1 and number 2 seeds. But certainly, I think Sinner is playing the better tennis. I think he's shown that through the whole fortnight. And although I think there are maybe some things that maybe he would look to improve, particularly around the first serve, I think if he can keep that percentage higher, I think Alcaraz is going to have a very difficult time. So yeah, I personally think that Sinner goes into it as the slight favourite, and even though maybe history is on Alcaraz's side and the form book, as it were, I do think the way that Sinner is playing, it could be his time, I think, to maybe win a first Roland Garros title.
I think Sinner will be fresher as well. He hasn't just had 3 months off. He's played less time on court, I think, over the course of this fortnight. He's been getting the job done, more efficiently than Alcaraz, who
he's not dropped a set. Sinner
has gone to 4 sets a fair bit. Yeah, Sinner's not dropped a set, so that freshness might play a factor as well. Or, will that adversity dropping a set kind of throw him off a bit if Alcaraz is able to get that first set? I mean, who do you think, if going like the first set, who do you think that's more crucial for to win? Or will it matter?
It's interesting because, usually I would say maybe it's more important to Sinner, because we know that Alcaraz likes to kind of play his way into a match. And we know that typically he gets stronger the deeper it goes. But actually this time I think it's probably more important for Carlos Alcaraz to win the first set, given given how he's been playing, given how he's been wobbling, I think he'll want to put Sinner under pressure early on. Easier said than done though, because no opponent really has been able to do that. So if he can nab that first set and put Sinner in an unfamiliar position for him in this Roland Garros from a set down, it could slightly change things. And I think that might be the initially the game plan from Alcaraz is to kind of play aggressive, make sure my first serve percentage is high, make sure my forehand is firing, not giving away any cheap unforced errors, because we've seen that a few times in the tournament, and make Sinner maybe have to think a little bit, because so far it's been he's pretty much coasted it, I think, to the final, bar a few moments here or there.
Yeah, I think I do wonder, nerves. Do you think Sinner will get, Alcaraz has won this particular slam before. Do you think Sinner will be weighing on his mind like,
I don't think so.
He's very cool, calm and collected.
Yeah.
But if it's push comes to shove, it gets a bit tense, really tight. That might be the difference. It's going to come down to slim margins, I think, as it I think really tends to do.
I think quite interesting. Where the crowd gonna fall with this match, because they're both two crowd pleasers, both entertainers on the court. How do you think that's going to swing? Do you think it's just going to depend on what the situation is and the fans just wanting more tennis?
I think they'll just want 5 sets. I think the French crowd probably fairly evenly split. I think they'll just want a fantastic epic. I wonder how many Carota boys will be in attendance.
Oh, very true. Very true.
Yes. I mean, who are you going for then, Joel? We do have to do a little prediction. I think we both predicted this final in our, pre-tournament predictions. I think you went Alcaraz then and I went Sinner. Are you sticking with your...
Oh, did I? It's so long ago, I've actually forgotten. But I'm going to have to change. Sinner has convinced me to change that prediction just on the level that he has shown. So I'm actually going to go Sinner in straight sets.
Oh, okay.
Pretty punchy, but yeah.
Yeah. I also think Sinner, just the way he's been playing, was just dominant. Imperious even. I'll say Sinner in 4 though. I think Alcaraz will do enough to clinch a set, but overall I think my sort of head is with Sinner. Although, prove me wrong, Carlitos. So yes, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a battle.
They face in a final,
and someone's going to taste defeat for the first time
in a major final, which is unusual because most players get to sort of 3 or 4 major finals. They haven't won them all. Like, this is a very unusual, the fact they have this 100% record. So yeah, they've got to get with reality, haven't they? One of them. But let's take a quick break now. But do join Joel and Chris in the second half, where they'll be discussing the women's semi-finals, including Aryna Sabalenka dethroning Iga Swiatek on Philippe Chatrier, and Lois Brasson's miracle run coming to an end at the hands of Coco Gauff. So do not go anywhere.
Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, brought to you by Property Hub Invest. And it's time to look back now on the women's semi-finals. Aryna Sabalenka versus Iga Swiatek, and French home hope Lois Brasson versus Coco Gauff. Chris, let's start with the blockbuster encounter of Swiatek and Sabalenka, because this was, two heavyweights in the women's game, meeting in a Grand Slam semi-final. Swiatek's home court, having this indifferent form coming in, impressing a lot of people, let's be honest, to get to the semi-finals, and then facing the world number 1 in Aryna Sabalenka. I mean, what did you make of this match? Because Sabalenka won in 3 sets. She finished it off with a bagel, 6-love. Very topsy-turvy opening set, lots of breaks of serve. How did you, what did you make of this match?
I think it was really a roller coaster. The first set, I think I aged about 10 years, Joel, because we were in a situation where I thought Sabalenka was running away with it. Iga then got all the way back into it. Iga went up. Sabalenka then went up again. Iga broke. Then we had the tie break, and obviously Sabalenka ran away with that. We know she's so good in tie breaks, especially at this tournament. So the first set made me think this is going to be a really epic rest of clash.
Yes.
And then it was very strange because I don't think I've seen such a drop off in a semi-final or a match of this sort of standard. I think I've seen that before when a player loses that second set, they then go away. It's very rare that the player who wins the second set would completely drop off like Iga did. So it does show that Sabalenka is relentless and that you might raise your level, but she is also going to raise hers, and or she's going to keep her level very high throughout, which is something that Iga couldn't. I mean, did you love this as a contest? I think those first two sets, I think that really was sort of peak women's tennis for this tournament. But does the third set let it down a little bit?
Yeah, I thought we were going to kind of reach a grandstand conclusion in that third set, and it was going to be dramatic. I guess it was dramatic, but in a way reasons. That we weren't really, expecting. Although having said that, there has been a case that Swiatek has gone mentally a little bit more walkabout recently. She's been suffering from these bagels and these breadstick drops in conversation, drops in concentration, and her tennis ability. But I was so impressed with that first set, with how she kind of wrestled it back, because I think with a lot of the opponents that Sabalenka faces, they can feel intimidated, particularly when you're kind of like 3-love, 4-love down, double break down. It can get away from you so quickly. So I was really impressed with how Swiatek was able to respond and even just take it to a tie break. But as you alluded to, I think what's so impressive with Sabalenka now, this dominant and world number one Sabalenka, is the fact that she is able to respond and go again. She's not going to get too flustered that she's going to let, a lead slip and go away from her. She's going to come back at you. And that's exactly what she did in that first set tie break. I do think that the conditions helped because the roof was closed for this match. Very still conditions. Do you feel like that was a factor, in the result? And do you feel like that maybe favoured Sabalenka a little bit more?
I think it did. I think Iga's really good in the wind. I think she showed that throughout the tournament, especially some of the gusty winds you get on Chatrier, where it does not necessarily just come from one direction. I think Iga's really good in those environments. And if you're a big hitter, you don't have necessarily quite as much margin on your shots. So it definitely favors Sabalenka when the roof is closed. I think it helped her tennis, her big serve. It also means that there's more chance, I think, that she's going to make more than she would miss. Having said that, I mean, you just don't necessarily know what would happen if that was the case. She's proven she can win outdoors as well. I think what's interesting is the fact that, the clay tides have shifted in this sort of head-to-head. I think now we're looking at Iga being the dominant force on clay, but I think there is an argument now that Sabalenka is pretty much the dominant force everywhere, or potentially Coco Gauff might be making a claim, a last-minute claim for the Queen of Clay title here. But what's your view on that?
I mean, I quite like the fact, and we're going to get into talking about the final in a bit, but I do like the fact that we've got the number one and the number two seeds in the final, because Iga Swiatek is a class competitor, particularly on clay, particularly in Paris. We've seen that many, many times before, and it feels nice that we've got kind of the top two players. We've not got a kind of a surprise person out of nowhere or whatever. It feels like a very natural match to take place, given what we've seen happen. And I do think Iga Swiatek is going to be back. I arguably would say that she showed that she is back somewhat, I think, in this tournament. I think she played the best clay tennis we've seen, certainly over the last month or so. So I'm happy we've got the Sabalenka Gauff final. I mean, just talking about the kind of the performance of Sabalenka, were you surprised from Sabalenka, but also from Gauff, like just how easy they were able to break each other? I feel like Sabalenka is such a formidable server, but Swiatek was able to break her seemingly at ease at points in the first and second set. What was going on with their service games, and why were both of them just finding it so hard to hold serve?
I think they are two of the best returners in the game. I think Iga, being a player who doesn't necessarily have the strongest serve always, it does mean that she is more reliant on breaking sometimes, especially if she is getting broken herself. I think she's the top returner on the tour this year in terms of winning return service games. So even though her serve might not be getting her through, she is breaking a lot of times. So I think that's probably what you would expect. I think for Sabalenka, if you have a serve like she does, you wouldn't expect to be broken as much, but that's testament to how well Iga was returning. I think that's why it's really promising, the fact that she is kind of quietly putting together a pretty decent year. I think she's definitely putting together like a solid top four, semi-finals in Australia. She could have made that final as well. I mean, it is very close. And I think she showed that no matter what form some of these players are in, they all have a great chance of winning a slam here. I guess that's the question I would ask in terms of Iga now. So it's been a strange period. I still think she's playing top four tennis, but she has not won not won a title and not reached a final in, well, it will be over a year after the French Open. Her last final was the French. Is it time for her to make some changes? And how much should we read into this?
Yeah, I mean, these questions were kind of popping up prior to the French Open, and the fact that she is number 7 in the rankings as well from Monday is also kind of just like an alien landscape really for Iga Swiatek. And there's no doubt that she needs to improve. I do think she's playing better tennis than that ranking possibly suggests, but I think it's going to get harder now because we've got grass where she's not necessarily had her best results. And I think particularly again with these power-based players, that proposition I think is just going to get even more tricky. Even with like a Rybakina as well, when they hit flat, the ball stays low. Don't necessarily think it plays to Swiatek's strengths. So I do think there may be a little bit more kind of uncertainty to come. And although I think this maybe this kind of set of results and getting to the semis has maybe kind of delayed the conversation of her team and win for set, and whether you would kind of get rid of him or would you persevere. I think the kind of the transition and the changeover is so quick between the clay and the grass that I think you need to stick with, see what happens in the grass court season, and then maybe take stock of the situation before the hard courts come up again, because I think that's where she will kind of realistically see a better opportunity to kind of get back on the horse, possibly win, a Grand Slam title again. I think she's going to need to do that as a statement to kind of show that she is back, because I do wonder if, this kind of situation has kind of shown that, is Iga Swiatek just a clay court specialist? I mean, she's only won one slam not on clay at the US Open. Do you think there's an argument to say that there's still quite a bit of work to be done there? Whereas with Sabalenka, as you said, dominant all round, regardless of surface, she's just playing the best tennis at the moment.
Well, she's actually the third woman this century to reach multiple Grand Slam singles finals in 3 or more consecutive years, and that's joining the company of Venus and Serena Williams. So wow. Venus did it 3 years in a row. More than 3 years in a row, and Serena did it for 3 years, and that was in the early 2000s. So it shows that she is the big performer. She is the number one for that reason. I think with Iga, as you say, there's a risk of her legacy becoming that of a clay court specialist. Not that's a bad thing, but I think when she won that slam in 2022 at the US Open, I think she answered that question that she can win slams on any surface. I think she will be not necessarily prioritizing or wanting one slam more than another, but I do think it would go some way to get her out of that clay specialist box.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the magnitude of this result, a lot of people kind of talking about, her dominance in Paris and, has she become dethroned? Can one result do that, do you think, against, the world number one in Sabalenka? Or do you still feel like that's a question to come with ultimately the final between Sabalenka and Gauff?
I'm not really worried about kind of the Swiatek side of things. I think seeing a difference in her, the fact that she isn't getting so bogged down in the smaller ups and downs, I think she's actually putting herself in a much better space mentally to improve in the future. And I think that making a semi-final run is probably a pretty good result as opposed to being dethroned. I think she had a very good title defense and she had a tough draw with Sabalenka. And if you play Sabalenka in a final, which we'll talk about in a bit, you're going to have chances because she can get edgy in those moments. So I think she was so close to make it to a final that I don't think you can look at this as being a big
No.
disappointment. Obviously, not defending your title is tough, but at the same time, it's all about a result within the context of where you were and the journey that you're on.
Yeah, and it's going to make Swiatek, I think, even more dangerous because she's going to probably have a lower seeding. Big players are going to kind of face her earlier on in the tournaments, and it's a completely, I think, different proposition for Swiatek. I think this is kind of the reality we're now living in the sense that she's now part of the chasing pack.
It's kind of exciting, isn't it? I'm excited to see what she does next. I think we love to see a story where someone hits the top and then maybe they fall from the top and then they get back up there. You know, I think it's like not like a revenge story, but I kind of love the Iga revenge story that we're in right now. I think it's I think she's going to get back up there for sure.
Yes. Well, let's see. I mean, Aryna Sabalenka is going to face Coco Gauff in the finals, and Coco Gauff defeated Lois Boisson, the French magical story, Cinderella story that's happened over the last fortnight. 6-1, 6-2. Chris, not really too much we can read in, I think, to the performance here. It was, let's be honest, a little bit of a mismatch. And although Lois Boisson did incredibly well, unbelievably well, historically well to get to a semi-finals, you know, these are big moments for other players and they are ready to, you know, make their moment. They have got no emotion for the soft story here. They just want to get on and get the victory. And that's exactly what Coco Gauff did. She just showed her absolute ruthless side, didn't she?
She did. And looking back, I think you can see why this was such a mismatch in the sense that the other players that she's faced, Brasson, on this run, she has been able to sort of peg them back at key moments when she's gone down a break. I think with Gauff, she's actually probably at her worst when she plays against a big hitter. Not saying she won't beat the big hitters, but when it's someone like Brasson who kind of crafts more of a point, who likes the long rallies, I mean, you're playing into Coco Gauff's strength. And I think that's what happened here is that Coco, I mean, it's amazing to think that she is younger than Brasson, who's obviously having this run and she's already won slams. This is her, I think it was her fifth quarterfinal. So fifth consecutive quarterfinal. So some of the stats, when you see how just mature she is, I think she's just too seasoned for this sort of an encounter at this stage of a slam. So I think it probably is the way that they play means that Coco really did sort of slam that door. And if you are going to get if you're going to win a semi-final, I don't think you can let someone run away with it quite like that.
Yeah, I mean, before we get on to talking about kind of Coco Gauff and where her level is at, I mean, Lois Boisson, I have to say this because I'm sure there are going to be other listeners out there saying this as well. We have had rogue semi-finalists in the past. We had Podoroska, we've had Zidansek.
We talked about that last
recently.
Time. You love a Zidansek moment.
Yeah, what is it? What is it about the French Open and rogue ladies semi-finalists?
I think clay court specialists are a real thing in a way that grass court specialists aren't quite. I think you get a few players who maybe would consider themselves that, like the Alison Risks or people like that, you know. But I think on clay, so many of the American players and some of the top players are not that comfortable on it. So I think that it does lend itself to results like this. And I think maybe that's why I think going into this grass season, it could be interesting because we do get some rogue semi-finalists at Wimbledon. You know, we've had many quite surprising semi-finalists, I think, over the years, especially quarter-finalists at Wimbledon. So when the surface isn't hard, I think upsets tend to happen. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because Lois Boisson will need a wild card to get into Wimbledon. Her ranking isn't high enough. Where do you think she goes from here? And again, I have to ask this question. Do you see this as kind of a flash in the pan moment that we're going to be looking back on, or how high do you think Lois Boisson can go in terms of her ranking?
I think the fact that this happened at this stage of her career, I think not kind of younger, and the fact that she had got a little bit of momentum prior to her injury when she won the 125 tournament, I think she will be destined to stay in the top 100. I think it's hard to know how inspired this run was versus her regular level because we've seen so little of her on the tour. So I'm hoping she gets a wild card. If she doesn't get a wild card, listeners, there is good news that she has a special ranking because of that injury. So she will be able to play qualifying is the latest. So we're hoping that she won't have to because I think it would be nice if they could acknowledge the form, and that I think a lot of people would want to see her at Wimbledon. I think she would be a draw on an outside court. So let's see what happens. And I think this next period will be really important to her.
Yeah. We just want the Harriet Dart rematch on centre court. That's all
that would be tasty.
That's all
Joel,
we're asking for.
You would definitely be there for that.
Yeah, but I think she, based on her result here, I do think she has earned a wild card for Wimbledon. I mean, listeners, let us know. Do you agree? Do you think Lois Boisson should get a wild card into Wimbledon, into the main draw? Or do you think she should be going through qualifying? I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but do let us know. Chris, moving on to Coco Gauff, though, you know, she's been in a French Open final before. She's now into her second final, different opponent this time, Sabalenka. A lot of people talk about her as a clay court specialist, and it has got me actually thinking: is her game now more well-rounded than Iga Swiatek, for example? But do you think Coco Gauff can win her first Grand Slam on a clay court in the singles?
Absolutely. I think the matchup and the nature of the matchup between Sabalenka and Gauff is such that neither of them play their best tennis against each other. And I think when it gets really scrappy, it is about who is the most resilient in those moments. And I think Coco Gauff is very resilient. I think she's shown that when she won the US Open. I was looking at some of the numbers previously, and that match, there were 13 winners for Coco Gauff, 27 unforced errors. And that was the US Open final. And then for Sabalenka, it was 25 and 45. So 45 unforced errors. So,
wow.
You know, it was not the prettiest of encounters. Not saying that it has to be, and it doesn't take anything away from the performance because it's about beating your opponent. But I think if we end up in a bit of a Madison Keys sort of encounter like Coco had, where the unforced errors were high, but she still found a way to win, I think it's wide open. I think it's a tough one to call, and I think it most likely it won't be a straight sets result.
Well, their last match on clay was in Madrid, where Sabalenka did come through in straight sets. But yeah, you do think back to that US Open final, and you talk about two players who, you know, particularly I think more with Coco Gauff this season, it has been messy at times. And I guess for Sabalenka, you know, she's shown some elements of that messiness, as it were. You know, for example, in the semi-final against Swiatek. But yeah, is it like
a bit more mentally messy with Sabalenka? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I feel like Coco sometimes doesn't
like
always
tennis
play.
messy. Maybe because there's been a lot of talk around her kind of forehand and her serve. You know, didn't have the greatest sunshine swing out in the States. Where do you think this match is going to be won and lost then? Between Gauff and Sabalenka, because they're head to head. I think is it 4 apiece at the moment?
I think it's 5 apiece.
5 apiece. Sorry, it's neck and neck, 5 apiece. Where do you think this is going to be won and lost?
Oh, I think the serve is going to be huge. I think holding serve is going to be really, really important. I think serving well. Who
do you think that's going to be more important for?
Well, in that US Open final, Sabalenka probably would have won it if she'd served a bit better. In terms of some of the numbers, her first serve percentage was pretty low. She couldn't get a first serve in at sometimes. It was about 50%, but she was winning 65% of points on that first serve. So if she has a high first serve percentage, she's very hard to take a set off. And that's been shown at this championships by the fact that was the first set that she dropped was in the semi-final against the defending champion. So I think that would be really important as a stat. I also think for Coco, it's about taking your chances, taking those break points if you have them. And she's been really good at that, especially in that semi-final. So I think it will come down to who is able to play the more aggressive tennis and who's able to back their shots in the biggest moments. And I think something switched into gear for Sabalenka where she went through the gears in that semi-final. But Sabalenka is the best player in the world. I think undoubtedly she is, and she should have won. And probably should have won in Melbourne. She probably should have won that US Open final against Coco. And the reason why she doesn't is, as we've talked about, is that there is this mental weakness that can sometimes flare up in these big moments and the frustration. So it's about managing.
Do you expect the pressure of the situation might get to her at all? Or
yeah, I think she really wants it. I think she really, really wants it. Because
wants it too much?
Probably, but she also knows how good she is. And I think that's the thing, is that we don't talk about technical flaws in Sabalenka's game anymore. Now the serve has been fixed. she is the full package. She has almost like a Serena level of game, but she's not winning all of those big titles. She's winning a lot of titles outside of the slams. I mean, she's got less slams than Iga Swiatek, who's younger than her as well. So I think I want to see them both play their best tennis. And if they are playing their best tennis, then Sabalenka will win this match, probably in a similar scoreline to the Madrid of 6-3, 7-6. But if not, I think if it goes 3, I'm backing Coco Gauff.
Interesting. Well, it's quite nice because it is a matchup between the top 2 seeds, the world number 1 and number 2, and that's the first time it's happened since 2018 Australian Open. Wozniacki defeating Simona Halep.
Goodness.
So
I wouldn't have guessed that they were 1 and 2 at the time, would you?
No, I know. Yeah, very surprising. But yeah, I mean, I would just add to that as well. I think what was quite intriguing, particularly in that semi-final, was kind of the rally length. And when Sabalenka was able to keep the points short, she was able to kind of assert herself. And we know how good Coco Gauff is defensively. So I do think also, just to add another element in there, is if Coco Gauff can keep that kind of one extra ball in, keep extended rallies going for as long as possible, I think that will also favour Gauff. And we saw that. And I think that was one of the reasons, Swiatek came back into that semi-final, was that she was able to kind of draw out the rallies a bit more in that second set. Granted, Sabalenka's, level did drop a little bit, but I do wonder as well if, if Gauff can just stay in the point that bit longer, maybe that'll help her too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think probably it was really good, the match against Keys, in terms of preparation for playing Sabalenka. Big hitters, and a match where Coco, as I've said, didn't play her best tennis, still came through with the result. So I think she's not going to be nervous this time. I think she was very nervous and intimidated for her first Grand Slam final in Paris a number of years ago. I think it was 2022. But she's a great mover. She's really comfortable on the surface. And it is the 2 top performing players of the clay season. So this is the blockbuster final that we're looking forward to. And I think it's great for women's tennis that at the end of what's not necessarily been the best platform for tennis, courtesy of, well, it's up for debate, isn't it? Whether it's Prime or the French Tennis Federation and the scheduling. I think it's great that this is the final that will bring numbers and will also be a blockbuster.
It's just funny how every Grand Slam I feel has scheduling issues, but they're all for kind of different. They're just like all for different reasons. It's
hard
I feel
to
like
get right. Clearly, I mean,
it is hard to get right. I feel like the most superficial or sort of funniest issue is like with Wimbledon. We just have to get it finished by 11 p.m. an 11 p.m. curfew.
It's quite uncontroversial in comparison. I'm quite jealous of the Wimbledon schedulers, of the fact that they just say get off court and come back tomorrow.
Exactly.
None of the drama.
None of the drama, and like with Australian Open, US Open, going late is always an issue there. So it's just fascinating. But hopefully the the matchup between Sabalenka and Gauff can just sort of forget about everything and just let us focus on the tennis. Let's end the episode, Chris, with some predictions.
Right.
I am going to ask you for the name of the victor, as well as the number of sets, how you think it's going to finish. Is Coco Gauff going to win her first Roland Garros title, or is Aryna Sabalenka going to win her first Roland Garros title as the world number 1? Where are you going?
This is tough. I think I was thinking this would be the season that Sabalenka would pick up the French Open and Wimbledon, and I think I'm going to opt for, if she's playing her best tennis, she's winning the match, and she's winning it in straight sets.
Sabalenka in 2.
But I do still back, if it goes 3, I think Coco's winning. But I have to say 1, and I'm going to say Sabalenka in 2.
I'm going to go...
See, you've asked me, but you're not prepared. I think this was my final, by the way. I'm going to predictions, Joel.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go Gauff in 3. In 3. I just...
It's going to get to Sabalenka, do you think?
I think Gauff is going to be more composed in the final.
Everything to gain, nothing to lose.
Yeah. I'm gonna back but she does go in as the underdog, but they're both very experienced. Even Coco Gauff, and how young she is still relatively. It's incredible, what both competitors are doing. So yeah, it's going to be a really intriguing matchup. We're both really excited for it. I'm sure Kim is excited as well. And we're also excited because we're going to be doing things a little bit differently with our schedule over the weekend. We are going to be recording our ladies finals episode on Saturday, and that is going to go out on Saturday. And then we're going to be recording the men's final episode on Sunday, and that is going to go out on Sunday. So Chris, we're going to have 2 episodes this weekend, aren't we?
We are, and I think it's going to be great that we get to kind of spotlight both finals, because you always feel like once that first finals happened, you want to talk about it immediately. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing.
Great stuff. Right, that wraps up our latest Roland Garros round by round catch up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you have enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of action from finals weekend at Roland Garros. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, then as always, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Honestly, it helps us out so much, helps us be discovered by new listeners. So please do that if you've been enjoying the coverage and you have a chance to, as well as hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And if you'd like to stay connected with us on social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Threads. And do leave us some comments there. We'd love to know what you think. And we'll be putting some polls out around Lois Brasson getting a wild card, as well as who you think is going to win on Saturday and Sunday.
Right. We'll be back on Saturday for our French Open 2025 women's final catch-up, brought to you by Property Hub Invest. But until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.